Hey guys, it's Warners, and today I'm going to be talking about the Paladin. I'm mostly going to be talking about the changes from the 2014 to the 2024 Paladin, but specifically in how good of a support class the Paladin is now. I'm also going to be discussing the basic concept of how class design can affect playstyle, and how just because you include an ability in a class, it doesn't mean you're incentivized to use it. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to be showing my support focused Paladin subclass called the Oath of Radiance Paladin. It's essentially kind of a fusion of the Life and Light cleric, but instead of being a cleric, it's a paladin. And if you ever played World of Warcraft, it's maybe a little reminiscent of the Holy Paladin. So if any of that seems interesting to you, let's get on with the video. So first I want to discuss the 2014 Paladin. Probably considered the best class in 2014, I would say. Most people would agree. And what I mean by best is that there really wasn't that many things to complain about. It did good damage. It was able to be a support character when necessary. It had good survivability. It could play kind of a tank character if it wanted to, but it also could do some of the highest damage in the game, especially with how bursty the 2014 rules were. Paladins really got to take advantage of that. By level 7, with the Aura of Protection feature, they became a support powerhouse, being able to add their charisma modifier to their and everyone else's saving throws as long as they were within 10 feet of the Paladin. But with how smites worked in 2014 and how good they were, to quote the Paladin in one of my parties that I played in, saving all my spell slots for Divine Smite is the most natural thing to do. Now, there is many exceptions to the rule, and if you played a 2014 Paladin and had a great time being a support character, concentrating on the bless spell and healing your party throughout combat, then that's great and amazing. But with you being able to smite on every single attack, or being able to wait until you get a crit and then being able to do a Divine Smite crit, it's really tempting to actually just use all your spell slots for Divine Smite. In this way, I feel like Paladins were almost too good in 2014. Also, almost all of your abilities required an action, even in some of the subclasses. For example, the Oath of Devotion, to activate your Sacred Blade, required a full action, and then you weren't really able to do anything with your bonus action anyway. And so a lot of the subclasses felt kind of clunky in a weird way. And then if you used Lay on Hands, it was a full action. If you wanted to use Cure Wounds, well, you're not attacking that turn and you're not smiting. If you wanted to play a support character, you really had to sacrifice on your damage a bit, which can sometimes feel like not the best option, especially with the 2014 version of healing, where the meta that a lot of people did is they cast Healing Word on their downed ally and just kept doing that over and over again. Well, Paladins didn't have access to Healing Word, so they mostly felt motivated to spend their actions killing the thing that's killing their party rather than healing their party. I feel like WotC noticed this to a certain extent, and even though I have many criticisms of some of the redesigns of the 2024 Player's Handbook, I actually really like what they did with the Paladin. I still think they should have made the Paladin smites work like Eldritch Smite, where you can only do one per turn and it doesn't require a bonus action. But because of this, you have to be very specific about using Divine Smite now, which I feel like in a weird way kind of lets the support aspects of the Paladin open up a little bit more. Now, before I get carried away, let me go over the specific main changes to the Paladin. I won't mention everything because I'm trying to talk about one specific thing. I'm going to be talking about the Divine Smite changes more specifically and the Lay on Hands changes. So it used to be that Divine Smite was not a spell but a class feature, and because it wasn't a spell, there wasn't any limit to how many times you could do it per turn. So by level 5, you could do 2 Divine Smites per turn with your extra attack, and if you had something like Polearm Master, you could do 3 Divine Smites per turn. Depending on the kind of group you play with, you either saved them for crits or you just did them with every attack. Paladins being a half caster means they have limited spell slots in general, and because Divine Smiting is so fun to do, you often would just save them for that. And then let's look at the 2014 Lay on Hands. So you had a pool of lay on hands hit points equal to 5 times your paladin level. So at level 20, you would have 100 lay on hands hit points. And as a full action, you could heal with any number of hit points you wanted to, as long as you were within reach of a target. That means at level 20, you could heal a target for 100 hit points, all with one action, which was really powerful, but it did use your full action. You also could use 5 of your hit points to cure disease or cure poison, which was not quite as useful, but it would come up every once in a while. And then this technically isn't lay on hands, but at level 14, you got this ability called Cleansing Touch, which charisma modifier times per long rest. You could cure 1 spell effect on a target. That'll make more sense later. Now let's go over the 2024 smites and lay on hands a bit more in detail. The new Divine Smite now is a spell, so you can only use it once per turn, and then it requires a bonus action. But it's very odd because you don't use a bonus action to make an attack that is Divine Smite. When you hit with your attack action, you then consume your bonus action essentially to then Divine Smite. So it kind of makes the action economy feel a little weird. It prevents you from being able to double smite, and I'm pretty sure it makes it so you can't smite with your opportunity attack reaction. Let me know down in the comments if you agree. This is definitely a nerf for Paladin, especially Paladin damage. But one thing that's really nice about this is it opens up a lot of the other Paladin smite spells that often a lot of people didn't end up using. Now spells like Thunderous Smite, Wrathful Smite, Shining Smite, Blinding Smite, Staggering Smite, and Banishing Smite now feel a little better to use because it's just the same as casting a regular Divine Smite anyway. For most of them, you can be concentrating on another spell while you smite. For the ones that don't, it usually makes sense, like for example, Banishing Smite. You concentrate on it so you're able to keep the target banished. And then the new Lay on Hands now allows you to use Lay on Hands as a bonus action. You can still also use 5 of your hit points to cure the poison condition from a creature, but it no longer has the curing disease thing because disease doesn't seem to be in the 2024 rules, at least for now. And whereas in 2014, Cleansing Touch was a separate feature that you could use proficiency bonus times per long rest, the 2024 Paladin has Restoring Touch, which is even better than Cleansing Touch. It uses 5 points of your Lay on Hands, so it's no longer a separate resource, but instead of just dispelling a spell effect, now you can cure blinded, charmed, deafened, frightened, paralyzed, or stunned. And what's really great about that is a lot of the new monsters in the 2024 monster manual don't actually use spells, but they have the ability to do spell-like effects. And so this makes it so you can cure any of these condition types with your Lay on Hands. And remember, it's a bonus action now. I think this works really cleanly because in the past, if you wanted to, for example, end a spell effect on your ally, it would require a full action and you couldn't attack that turn. But now you can cure your ally of being paralyzed and then use your attack action to attack normally. You can't smite on this turn, but being able to heal your friend and then do a normal attack, that still feels pretty good. Also, if you compare the Paladin spell list from 2014 to 2024, it's almost completely the same, especially when you include the spells that Tasha's Cauldron of Everything added. The only new spell that Paladins got access to that I would consider to be a support spell is Greater Restoration. They used to only have Lesser Restoration, which is nice to see on this spell list. I want to discuss how healing has been changed in the 2024 rules in general, and how I feel like healing is something that you can actually do now. You don't have to rely on the yo-yo healing method of old. So first of all, in 2014 rules, healing was really weird, and I really hated the meta way of healing. Basically, Cure Wounds only did 1d8 of healing, and if you upcasted it, it only went up by another 1d8. So it ended up being like not worth using most of the time. And because of that, the playstyle that most people adopted, because a 1 HP character is just as effective as a full HP character, is they just waited till one of their friends went down, like got below 1 hit point, and then they would use the easiest, smallest healing spell to bring them back up. And it's called yo-yo healing because people kept going down and back up and down and back up and down and back up, and it just felt weird, and thematically it felt weird too. It was like, wow, I'm gonna go down like 5 times in a combat. That's not very epic. And actually, one of the games I play in, we actually made a homebrew rule that if you go down, you you get 1 level of exhaustion. We also homebrewed exhaustion a bit, similar to the 2024 playtest version of it. Basically, the only thing exhaustion does is every d20 roll you do, you -1 per level of exhaustion, and you don't die at a certain number. You just keep adding them. And then also it takes a long rest to get rid of your exhaustion, and you can only cure it with greater restoration anyway. So yeah, it also makes features like the new ranger ability to get rid of exhaustion a bit cooler, because it makes exhaustion happen a bit more often. But anyway, now I would argue healing people before they go down is a lot better now, because now cure wound does 2d8, and when you upcast it, it does 2d8 more per level. And the same with healing word. Healing word used to do 1d4, now it does 2d4, and when you upcast it, it does 2d4 more per level. It makes being a healer support character a little more rewarding, and it makes that playstyle a little more viable. This automatically makes the Paladin playstyle a lot more support friendly, in my opinion. Yes, as a Paladin, you could always heal your allies, you could always be a support character, but now the class actually feels more naturally like a support character. Because if you have your bonus action free and your friend's paralyzed, you might as well use it to cure their paralysis. Whereas before, it was a bit more of a dilemma. Not only that, but the subclasses like the Oath of Devotion and even the Vengeance Paladin, now instead of having to use a full action or a bonus action to activate their subclass abilities, now they can activate them when they make the attack action. So this frees up their resources even more. It makes a lot of subclass features feel way less clunky, and I'm a big fan of that. Now, if you're wanting to play a support character in D&D, is Paladin my first choice? For sure, no. Yes, if you want to be the ultimate healer, still the Life Cleric is your best choice. If you want to be a good all-around support character in many different ways, the Bard or even the Druid fit the bill way more. But do I feel like the Paladin is a much better support character than it used to be? 100%. But there's still something missing a little bit, in my opinion. We have never gotten a healing focused Paladin subclass. Yes, we've gotten subclasses that have healing like abilities or just support abilities in general. Like for example, the Oath of Devotion has a lot of healing abilities on their spell list, and their new 15th level ability Smited Protection does give your allies half cover when you use Divine Smite, which isn't technically healing, but it definitely is a supportive ability. Then if you look at the Oath of Glory Paladin, their 15th level ability Glorious Defense allows them to add their charisma modifier to someone else's AC as a reaction, which is, yes, yet another good defensive option. The Oath of Ancients doesn't have a active ability like the other two subclasses, but they do have one of the best auras where they're able to give everyone within their aura resistance to psychic, necrotic, and radiant damage. And then the Oath of Vengeance is your quintessential damage dealing paladin, so they don't really have much in the way of supportive abilities. Again, I know all paladins have bless, all paladins have cure wounds, all paladins have aura protection, but I'm talking about a specific subclass that is the healing paladin. I personally played a holy paladin in World of Warcraft.
Healers, please keep your target up.
Yep.
And I love the thematics of the Holy Paladin, and I've always wanted to play that kind of paladin in D&D. And I was never able to until now, because no one else made it, I made it myself. I now would like to reveal to you the Oath of Radiance Paladin. Let me read this one to you. Mend the broken, purge the corrupt. The Oath of Radiance drives paladins to eradicate darkness in all its form. These warriors heal wounds of flesh and spirit, yet relentlessly confront sources of despair. They forgive mortal flaws, but unleash searing wrath on entrenched evil, corrupt tyrants, fiends, and other architects of suffering. Many swear this oath to gods of light or dawn, channeling their power into radiant magic. To allies, they are lightbringers. To tyrants, they are annihilation, proof that no shadow is eternal. These paladins share the following tenets: shine light upon all shadows, revealing truth and kindling hope. Mend the broken in mind and body. Seek justice, but with a patient heart. These are not your lawful good paladins. I would consider these paladins mostly being neutral good. Of course, you can play them however you want, but these are paladins that they see the suffering of the weak and have a compassionate heart towards them. They see the bigger picture of everything. If there's a corrupt kingdom where the king is hoarding all the wealth, they're not as likely to want to punish the poor thief that stole bread to feed his children. But that king, they might feel the wrath of the Oath of Radiance. And with that, let's go to the spell list. So specifically with this spell list, I wanted to stray away from the light cleric spell list. I have a few criticisms about the light cleric. I feel like there's far too many fire damage spells because in my opinion, fire is not holy. It can be, but I feel like radiant damage is the light damage, if that makes sense. Obviously, you could totally have a paladin themed as a light paladin and have a fire theme going on, but that's not what I did with this class. And unfortunately, with the SRD, I'm not able to use all the spells I would have probably liked to use. And then some of the spells just haven't been introduced to the 2024 rules yet at all. But let me go over the spell list and then I'll tell you the ones I would have picked if they were available on the SRD. So first of all, at 3rd level, we get the light cantrip. I decided to add a cantrip to the list because the Oath of Radiance Paladin needs the light cantrip. Come on. Then I have Guiding Bolt and Healing Word. This was very easy to pick. This paladin is the Radiant Paladin. I gave it a radiant damage spell and I gave it a healing spell that paladins normally don't have access to. Then here at level 5, we have Aid and Shining Smite. Yes, Shining Smite is a paladin spell, but I wanted this on the list and you don't even have to pick it. That way you always have this really good unique smite spell available to you, and then you're freely able to choose whatever spells you would like. Then level 9, we have Beacon of Hope and Spirit Guardians. Beacon of Hope will really make it so that all those healing spells can be at their max healing. And then Spirit Guardians is just like one of the best radiant damage spells available in the game. So of course I'm going to add it on this list. For level 13, this is where I had a bit of a hard time. First of all, there's not that many 4th level spells that had the theme I was going for. And one of the ones that I really wanted on this spell list was not available through the SRD. And that was Font of Moonlight. I really wanted Font of Moonlight on this list. Not only does it make it so your weapon attacks deal radiant damage, when enemies hit you, you can as a reaction blind them. I feel like that's so perfect and thematic for the subclass. So if you're using this subclass at home, maybe switch out Resilient Sphere with Font of Moonlight. Death Ward I feel like is pretty fitting, and I actually really liked having that on the list. And then for level 17, I went with Mass Cure Wounds, which is just a great spell, and paladins normally don't get access to it. And then I actually wanted Holy Weapon on this list, but Holy Weapon is in Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and it hasn't been updated in the 2024 rules. So instead I went with a nice support spell with Telepathic Bond. The Oath of Radiance Paladin is very much a team player sort of paladin that focuses on support, so I decided to put this on here to kind of convey their desire to communicate clearly with their friends in the heat of battle. And then here at level 3, we got their big feature. This ability was very hard for me to figure out how to write, but I finally did it. And I feel like it makes perfect sense and it's easy to read now. It's a lot of words, so let me get started. So we have a level 3 Beacon of Light. When you cast a spell of 1st level or higher, or use a class feature that restores hit points or deals radiant damage, you can expend 1 use of your channeled divinity to mark a creature you can see within 60 feet as part of the same action. This is meant to be very reminiscent of the Oath of Devotion and the Oath of Vengeance feature where they can activate it when they attack. This now you can also activate when you're healing. The marked creature sheds bright light in a 10-foot radius and dim light for an additional 10 feet for 10 minutes. For the duration, whenever you restore hit points to a creature other than the marked target, or deal radiant damage to a creature other than the marked target, using a spell slot of 1st level or higher or a class feature, the marked target either regains hit points equal to half the amount restored / damage dealt, or takes radiant damage equal to half the amount restored / damage dealt. If multiple creatures are affected, this effect uses only one creature's result, your choice. If a weapon attack includes multiple sources of radiant damage when casting a 1st level spell or higher, use the total radiant damage dealt to calculate this effect. For the duration, you can use a bonus action to mark a new creature, ending this effect on the previous one. Okay, so let me unpack that. There's quite a lot with this ability. So you cast Healing Word on your ally. Okay, with that same action, you can now mark another creature. This can be friend or foe, and if you choose either or, there will be a benefit. If you mark your friend with that initial healing word, your other friend will heal half of what the original target healed. If you mark a enemy, they will take half of the healing in radiant damage. Now let's say it's the same turn and you do a different decision. Okay, there are two enemies. You're gonna cast Guiding Bolt at one enemy. The other enemy you mark with Beacon of Light. The Guiding Bolt creature takes an amount of damage, and then the marked creature takes half of that in radiant damage. Do the same thing, you cast Guiding Bolt at an enemy, you mark your ally. Now that ally takes half of the Guiding Bolt damage and healing. So as you can see, this is a very versatile ability, and I think it's super fun. You can also use this with smites or with lay on hands. I actually playtest this subclass in a one-shot, and the first round of combat, I was attacked before it was my turn, and I took a really good amount of damage. And then what I did is at the beginning of my turn, I healed myself with lay on hands, marked a creature, and did half of my lay on hands in radiant damage. And then I did my attack action, and it felt really good, but not super crazy overpowered. But I was able to deal damage and heal myself in one turn, and that felt really nice. And then, just to be clear, if multiple creatures are affected, this effect uses only one creature's result, your choice. What I mean by that is, for example, if you have Spirit Guardians active and you walk into multiple creatures' space and they all take 10 damage, the marked creature doesn't take all that damage combined and then halved. It just takes 5 radiant damage or get 5 healing. Does that make sense? So like when you do an AoE effect and a bunch of targets take damage or a bunch of targets get healing, the marked creature only gets half of one creature's healing or radiant damage. Hopefully that makes sense. And then I also added that if your weapon already deals radiant damage besides the smite damage, then you add all the radiant damage together to equal what is healed or given through Beacon of Light. Not only does this make the ability more powerful and fun, it also makes it just way easier. Imagine having to calculate the weapon damage and the radiant damage separately, and then also the different radiant damages separately as well. That would be really confusing. So if you have Divine Favor up, or if you're using a Sunblade, all the radiant damage dealt, as long as you consume a spell slot, all that radiant damage is converted into an effect on the marked target. So I hope that makes sense. And then you can use a bonus action to move it, but the initial use of it does not require a bonus action. So yeah, that's Beacon of Light. Then we have level 7 Aura of Radiance. So your radiant presence enhances your magic and pierces darkness. I love this feature. So Paladins don't have that many spell slots, and I wanted this Paladin to feel a bit more willing to use spell slots because that's how they're able to use their features. So when you cast a first level Paladin spell, roll a d6. On a 5 or 6, the spell slot is not expended. So this allows you to have a 33% chance to not consume a first level spell slot, which I think is really cool, and it's really great on a half caster. And I feel like it makes it not too overpowered because it's on a half caster. And then this effect also works with second level Paladin spells at level 10 and third level Paladin spells at level 15. So it goes up in level, and at level 15 you're able to potentially get a free casting of a third level Paladin spell, which feels nice. And then there's the second effect, the actual aura effect, Piercing Light. You and your allies can see normally in dim light and darkness, both magical and non-magical, within 60 feet while in your aura protection. So you essentially give everyone in your aura Devil's Sight. Now, I know what you're saying, that's really powerful, yes, but it's also situational, and of course you could make a Oath of Radiance darkness build, but I feel like it's not very fitting thematically. Why would the light Radiance Paladin want the darkness spell cast on him on purpose, you know? But no, you could totally do that. It kind of makes the darkness Devil's Sight combo feel a little better and not so debilitating to your party. So yeah. Also, getting advantage is pretty easy nowadays, so I feel like it's not that crazy. And then level 15, we have Boundless Light. Your healing light overcomes what is typical. First feature, Radiant Ward. When you cast a spell of first level or higher, or use a class feature that restores hit points, the target gains temporary hit points equal to your charisma modifier. And then Holy Reach. Lay on Hands can now target target creatures within 60 feet. So what's nice about this is a lot of temporary hit point abilities give you temporary hit points kind of randomly, but this is specifically when you're healing a target. So most likely if you're healing a target, they probably don't have temporary hit points currently active. So this makes it nice. You can just add like about 5 temporary hit points every time you heal, which is nice. It's a nice little buffer. And then getting 60 feet lay on hands, that's just great. You can have bonus action laying on hands all over the place. And then we have our level 20 feature, Shining Paragon. Holy Radiance shields allies and blinds the wicked. Light's duality perfected. Holy Presence. As a magic action, you can cast Holy Aura without requiring concentration, without expending a spell slot, without preparing the spell, and without material components. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. And if you don't know the Holy Aura spell, I'll read it out to you. 8th level spell, action casting time, range of self, 30-foot area. Usually it's concentration for 1 minute. For the duration, you emit an aura in a 30-foot emanation. While in the aura, creatures of your choice have advantage on all saving throws, and other creatures have disadvantage on attack rolls against them. In addition, when a fiend or an undead hits an affected creature with a melee attack roll, the attacker must succeed in a constitution saving throw or have the blinded condition until the end of its next turn. Great spell. And then you also get Duality of Light. While your Beacon of Light is active, you are treated as a marked creature in addition to the target of the creature. Any effect triggered by healing or radiant damage applies to you and the marked creature separately. So that basically means you're able to, when you mark a creature, you're able to be affected as well. So you cast a 5th level Divine Smite, you do a bunch of damage to a creature, you have it on an ally, let's say, and automatically on yourself, you each get healed for half of the smite's damage. That's amazing. So by level 20, you doing radiant damage and healing is always doing healing on your allies or radiant damage on enemies, and you're healing yourself as well. Also, I commissioned this amazing art with the PDF, and I'm definitely going to be hiring this artist again, but hiring artists is a little expensive. So if you'd like to purchase the PDF, just know the link is right down in the description. And not yet, but maybe if you're watching this after August or September 2025, then I should have my Patreon down below. I'm going to be starting a Patreon soon, and it's going to have all of my D&D homebrew content available for $3 a month, and then I'll work out the details later of the other tiers. And basically you're going to be able to have access to, when I start the Patreon, around 3 or 4 subclasses that normally cost about $2 each, but you get all of them for $3. And if you pay monthly, you get access to whatever my new subclass or other homebrew thing I have available every month. So yes, consider supporting down below. Thank you guys so much, and have a great rest of your day. Peace.